All right, the conversation about the border is one we have often. And here's the frustrating part of this. We understand that both sides of the aisle need to take an interest. What's fascinating is how the roles have reversed. If you go back to the days of Bill Clinton, and we're going to play a clip from him in a moment where he said something I don't think he really meant to turn out the way it did. But when Bill Clinton was president in a State of the Union address, he asked Congress for more money so that they could expedite the deportation of people. Senator Obama, before he was President Obama, talked about why people should be angry about immigrants, illegal immigrants, taking jobs from Americans. The late Senator Feinstein called, I can't remember the word she used, but it was parasite or something like that. Leeches, I think maybe was the word she used, about people draining the American systems. These were Democrats. Chuck Schumer gave a speech in which he listed, I think, 7 different ways we could end illegal immigration. And part of what he said was he wouldn't even use the phrase undocumented immigrant. He said because by saying undocumented, it's showing the American people we're not serious about fixing this problem. He said, if it's illegal, you'll say it's illegal, and I believe it's illegal and it's wrong. This is Chuck Schumer, and so they've reversed their policies. But we all know that the border issue is one that's serious. Immigration in America is something that I think makes us the great nation we are. What's interesting is for the number of people on both sides of the political aisle, there are extremes on both sides that are not happy about this country. We hear the right, when the left is in charge, say that we are a nation in decline and all these other things. When the right is in charge, the left says it. And if Donald Trump wins the election, then many people say they're leaving this country, that we'll lose it forever. But the world doesn't see us that way. We have people coming here by the millions, and they're by any means necessary coming to our doorstep. So the illegal immigration problem shows that we still are that shining city on the hill. So what do we do to fix it? This is interesting. Savannah Sellers, NBC, 30% of the technology we have in place, the cameras we have along our borders, 30% of those cameras are broken.
According to an internal Border Patrol memo, this was obtained exclusively by NBC News, roughly 30% of the cameras in Border Patrol's main surveillance system are broken. That's right, 150 of 500 don't actually work. And that actually makes some sections of the U.S.-Mexico border totally invisible to agents.
How? I'm sure you're asking how that happens. Before we jump to the conclusion and you blame this administration, I would imagine this has been going on. This is a bureaucracy. This is the problem with bureaucracy. So Julia Ainsley from NBC, why they started looking into this.
So I was really surprised. I started digging into this because the union, the Border Patrol union, posted on Facebook that they were worried some cameras were down. But I had no idea the scale of it until we obtained this memo, and I was able to start talking to some of those agents on the ground.
So we all talk about the technology we need at the border and the money that needs to be spent, but this is the problem. This is the core problem with the bureaucracy. Republicans are demanding that more be done at the border. The Biden administration I'm just being honest, their policies were horrible on the border for the first 3 years of this presidency. I would say 3.5 before they actually did something, but they didn't even acknowledge a problem at the border until the beginning of this year. But we know that the border has been an issue that hasn't been fixed for a very long time. We've got border policy. The Democrats say the Republicans don't want to fix it because they didn't pass their border bill. The Republicans also say, over a year and a half ago, we passed H.R. 2 in the House of Representatives, and it's been sitting at the Senate collecting dust and has never been taken up. So the Democrats are the ones playing politics with this because Chuck Schumer won't take this H.R. 2 and let it up for debate. And let's get something done. But you also know that here's where the bureaucracy is showing itself to be the way it is. They're not fixing the cameras. They're not fixing the security equipment they have. I think of another scenario, any scenario, where that's an acceptable way to do things. Can you imagine if there are security cameras around any government building, around if we had, take jails, for example. Cameras are used in jails and prisons as a way to monitor inmates and behavior and the movement of people. Imagine if 30% of the cameras were broken and nobody was fixing them, and we're complaining about violence in our jails and how dangerous it is for officers, and nothing's being done. So this next clip just talks about the importance. How important are these to national security?
Because when we talk to the administration about what they do to stop immigrants, if they don't, or spot immigrants or illegal drugs coming across the border, if they can't put a person at every spot, they always turn to these cameras and they say, look, Trump's wall isn't nearly as important as surveillance. And so the fact that there would have been this major outage, this is 150 out of 500, that meant something. I wanted to know, are there areas of the border that simply are invisible? And they said, yes, there are some very remote areas where they don't have people. If the camera goes down, they can't see who's coming across.
Right. So why wouldn't you fix it? This is a national security issue. If you're on my side of the political aisle, we have been highlighting the number of people that are on the terror watch list that have come into the U.S. that are either they can't find them, they don't know where they are. There's a number of people, thousands of people that have committed the crime of homicide that are either, they may be in some jails, but we don't know where they are officially. There are all of these kids, these unaccompanied minors that have come into our country. We don't know where they are. And now we find this out. This is about inefficiency. This is not just partisan politics. This is both parties. Your tax dollars, my tax dollars, what we do. This is another example in my mind of the inefficiency of government. The inefficiency of government. Now, I want to play this just because Bill Clinton started a firestorm. This is Bill Clinton talking about Laken Riley and what would have happened had people been screened better.
You had a case in Georgia not very long ago, didn't you? They made an ad about a young woman who'd been killed by an immigrant. Yeah, well, if they'd all been properly vetted, that probably wouldn't have happened. But if they're all properly vetted, and that doesn't happen, and America is not having enough babies to keep our populations up. Okay. So we need immigrants that have been vetted to do work. There wouldn't be a problem. And he couldn't keep people all torn up and upset.
So the issue about immigration, which we'll talk about a little later in the show, is also how they affect our economy. The immigration issue, it is an important issue. There's a difference between border security and the immigration issue. Immigration is part of the border issue.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Catch up on Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast, and click the button in the middle to subscribe.